All right. Thank you all once again for joining. We are live now on YouTube. Should you find it difficult to join us, you can also, by all means, join the YouTube session. You can also, by all means, join the YouTube session. Thank you all once again for joining this wonderful enlightenment series. Like we said, we are going straight to the business of today. And like we have said, we have seen many of us already. Thank you all for joining from wherever you're joining us from. And today, the professional that we have on this wonderful enlightenment series is a highly motivated and result-oriented quality health, safety, environmental, also in the field of ESG, environmental professional and lean professional with 8+ years of experience driving positive change across diverse industries, including construction. He has experience in construction. He has leadership experience in the oil and gas, engineering, maritime, and logistics. He has proven his ability to develop and implement effective HSE and ESG strategies, leading to significant reduction in incidents, improving regulatory compliance, and enhanced sustainability performance. He has expertise in the ISO standards from ISO 9001, 14001, 45001, and so many other international standard and framework. Adept in risk management and incident investigation, is a good trainer, an excellent trainer. He's an auditor, a stakeholder. Uh, he has been involved in so many stakeholder engagement. He has possessed strong leadership, communication, and analytical skills with a commitment to fostering a culture of safety and sustainability. Currently pursuing his NEBOSH International Diploma. I don't know if he has gotten that already. Complementing the existing certification that he has, and a member of several professional bodies that you can name, member of several professional organizations. And it is in my almost humility that I will extend the baton to no other person than the powerful speaker, presenter for today's topic on HSE leadership, becoming a safety leader, no other person by John Urum Etta. Please, over to you, Mr. John. Mr. John, confirm that you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Please let us, please, your voice can come out louder than that, please.
All right, can you hear me now? Can everyone hear me?
Yes, better. Please, you can go on. You can go on with that, sir.
All right. Sorry for
The
the
floor.
little network interference. Hi, good evening, everyone. It's good to
Any issue? We can't hear you again.
see now. Is it better now?
Yes, we can hear you. Just go on. We can hear you loud and clear, sir.
Okay. So it's good to be here. Glad to see some wonderful faces, names to their name, like Waliu, Abanum, and the rest. So quickly, let's get down to our section, becoming a HSE leader. You agree with me that everybody wants to become a leader, everybody wants to become a manager, everybody wants to strive in the field of health and safety. But one very amazing quality that we all need to develop is leadership. Because if we are actually leading a system, be it whichever capacity that we are serving as a manager, as a safety supervisor, as an officer, you need leadership skills. So, quick one. There's this popular saying that goes on that leaders are actually born. Some persons are of the opinion that leaders are made. Please, can we just have on the chat sessions which opinion do we fall under? Are leaders born or are leaders made? Okay, I'm seeing some are saying leaders are made, leaders are made, leaders are made. So quickly, we are all right, right? Because in this session, we don't have a bad answer, we don't have a good answer. So we'll try to see how we can actually analyze both answers to see at the end of the day if we can actually come up with sustainable answers to this question. You agree with me if you say leaders are born? If you look at some European nations where they have a kind of kingship, automatically leaders or the throne does not transcend to the sons. In some situations, it does. However, there are some persons who are born with inanimate leadership qualities. There are also some persons who, over time, develop these leadership abilities. So, will you agree with me that leaders are actually made? So, in this section, we'll actually see different facets of leadership, especially in the health and safety forum. Of course, we all want to grow, we all want to thrive in whatever endeavors that we are doing. However, from the slide, we're actually made to understand that leaders are actually made because over time, we have to develop qualities, leadership abilities. These abilities will actually help us in whatever field of endeavors that we actually find ourselves. Now, it boils down to the questions: who is a leader? What is leadership? So we can keep the answers keep coming up on the chat box while we have the answers already displayed on the screen for better enlightenment. Like we said earlier when we started, there are no wrong answer. At the same time, there are no right answer. There are no wrong answers, right? So whichever opinion you have, those opinions are actually valid. It all boils down to the facet or your own perspective. So leadership, like we all know, is our ability to influence, to govern, to motivate a group of individuals towards achieving a common goal. So, whichever place we find ourselves, if we're actually trying to motivate, influence, or guide people around us, that means that is leadership. That is the leadership ability that we are trying to develop. Now, in leadership, there are key elements that we need to develop. One of such is setting a vision. Of course, in our system or in our organization in which we work, we have a set target or HSE target that we need to achieve. And as leaders, we need to set targets. You know, we're all coming from different backgrounds. You mix with different individuals who have different experiences and different perceptions. Now, if you don't collaborate, you will not find that leadership ability in you. Now, those are some of the key elements in leadership. Let's not forget that collaboration is vital. Let's also forget that decision making, and sometimes we need to inspire people to do voluntary work. A lot of us here in this call are HSE professionals. We all know that health and safety is actually the art of safeguarding human beings, the workplace, and also the environment. NEBOSH has its own definition, OSHA has their own definition. But let's limit ourselves to what we know or for something very, very simple. If we're talking about health and safety, we're all trying to protect our employees' health, our own health also. We also want to prevent an accident, and also we also need to safeguard the environment. So, in that light of HSC definition and that of leadership, how can we coin the both of them, HSC and leadership, into one definition? Now, HSC leadership is the ability to influence safety cultures, behaviors, and performance. Like I said earlier, it's our ability to influence our safety culture, our behavior, and performance in our organization. Now, it goes on beyond just compliance. Hey, you have to do this. Hey, you have to do that. No, rather, it actually focuses on values, accountability, and proactive engagement. Now, when we say proactive engagement, we must not wait for things to get bad. However, we are always on the move to take the initiative for us to engage our subordinates or people around us to inspire them to safe practice and continuous improvement. Now, as safety leaders, it is important that we create a strong safety culture because if we do not have a safety culture, our leadership ability will actually be questioned. Now, in creating a safety culture,
Hello, Mr. Am I the only one who can hear him?
Can everyone hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
we
I
can
can
hear.
hear him loud and clear.
Please keep up.
Yes, I can
We are
hear.
hearing you. We are with you.
Wally, I think you need to work on your
With you,
internet too.
sir.
But it's still
Please
going to
go
be
ahead. Please
ideal
go
if you
ahead.
can raise your voice a little bit.
Okay.
I'm sorry for that,
Please go
but
ahead.
we do
No,
The
hear
network
your
is on
voice
my
a
end.
little bit.
Go ahead.
Wally, you need to leave Ogun State and come to Lagos.
Well done. 1-0.
All right. Let's come back, please. So, what is the importance of our safety culture? We all know that safety culture is actually our shared values, our beliefs, and our behaviors towards safety. Now, when we have a very good and strong and reliable safety culture, you will see that people or workers are more inclined to obey, not just as a matter of compliance, just because they know the importance of having that safety culture. When you have a good safety culture, we have fewer incidents, fewer injuries, you see high productivities, high workers' morale, and a lot of that. We also see better compliance, reputational damage, good reputation of the organization, and also you see that very strong talent and engagement and productivity. Now, there are a lot of benefits when it comes to safety culture. You have that trust, you have that competitiveness, you have that morale, you have that engagement. Whereas the downside of when you have a poor safety culture, you always see a lot of absenteeism. Sometimes you see a lot of presenteeism too. You also have issues of costs. You also have issues of turnover. Because when an incident happens, when that incident happens, of course, if there's a property damage, you spend lots of money trying to replace those new property or trying to rebuild or replace the trust that those workers, you must have actually dampened their morale. Now, in safety management guideline, management leadership is always key because if there is no management leadership, whatever we are doing will not actually see the light of the day. And I can tell you for free that no matter how much you come here and preach safety, 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 if you do not have a management commitment, especially what our standard ISO 45001 has actually told us, if there's no management commitment, our safety culture, our safety leadership in an organization will not be so effective. Of course, while you have that safety culture, safety management backing, you also need the workers' participation. At the same time, we also need to identify hazard, proactively identify this hazard. We want to prevent them, we want to train and educate people, we want to also evaluate, and we also need to communicate. Because it is one thing having identified this hazard, having put effective control, having done all the necessary trainings that are involved, communication becomes a problem. Now, why is that so? It happens because sometimes communications can actually be misconstrued. And when that happens, people are actually being misled. People may not know what to do. Now, there are lots of legal backings, legal drivers where we need to have a very good, strong HSE leadership in our organization or as professionals that we find ourselves. Before now, before the whole idea of sustainability coming into full force, if you ask us to those persons that have actually written their NEBOSH in the past, the main reasons for that we manage occupational health and safety, people will tell you that, hey, it's the moral, we have the financial, we also have the legal. It is more interesting to know that sustainability is taking the light of the day. And one of the four main reasons that we manage occupational health and safety is because we need to marry into sustainability into whatever frameworks that we are doing. Little wonder you see myself, you see a lot of professionals in there telling us, hey, we're actually driving towards sustainability, sustainability, sustainability. Now, there are four main reasons why we need to manage occupational health and safety. One of such is moral reasons. Of course, we have a moral obligation to our colleagues, to our family members, and also to our employees, those persons who work directly under us. They need to go to work and come back home in one piece. Now, if for any reason we fail to manage health and safety effectively, or we fail to display good management commitment or good leadership in our ability to manage health and safety, of course, there are financial litigations that are bound to hit us hard. We know the cost of an incident, the financial implication, and the last, more importantly, sustainability, right? Because if our workplace is not sustainable, you see that we'll just be going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Sustainability will actually improve our business performance and also give us a good turnaround. Imagine when you're faced with a form of emergencies, sustainability is there, business resilience is there to ensure that your operation, whatever you're doing in your business, you're back in full force. Now, moving forward to some moral drivers, like what we said earlier, you can see this picture here of a father coming back home to his family. I actually cannot relate, but then it gives me so much joy when workers come to work. You see these same fathers, these same mothers going back to their family in one piece. In turn, the family actually has that certain form of trust that, hey, my daddy is going to go to work. He's going to come back in one piece. He's going to have good, he's coming back without any form of harm, without any form of uh, property damage or whichever form it takes. So, as safety leaders, we need to have that moral drivers in our system that whatever we do, we owe our workers, we owe those people we manage a duty of care that they need to get back home to their families or to their loved ones in one piece. Some of the financial drivers that we all know that when incident happens, now look at the bigger picture. The money it is going to take for us to procure new equipment, insurance claims, the legal costs, the downtime, absenteeism. Imagine you come to work today and a few of your colleagues, unfortunately, there was an incident the previous day. How would they feel? One of your colleagues who happens to be a very good friend of yours could not make it to work. How would you feel? Because there was an incident that happened. I'm sure a lot of us in this call will not be happy because as much as you want to come to work, the morale is no longer there because you now start thinking, what becomes of me if something like that happens to me? So imagine the reputation it actually has on the organization itself. Imagine maybe you have an existing contract, or possibly because of an incident, you start losing some good talent, some good staffs. This actually impacts health and safety, and it also impacts some good leadership. Now, let's see an example of a typical incident that happened. Now, this is an explosion that happened in 2005 in Texas, one of the refineries. From this scene, you can see that this scene is horrible. Now, we actually meant that we learned that 15 workers were actually killed. And when they were actually investigating the root cause of this incident, we had leadership failures, failure to ignore warning signs, and also poor safety culture. So you can now see that as leaders, as safety leaders, we need to ensure that our safety culture in our organization, we have that primary duty of care to drive this safety culture into our system, into those persons who are actually working directly under us or those persons that we work together with. Or generally speaking, we can say we owe our workers, all stakeholders, a duty of care to improve our safety culture, to improve our leadership ability, to also to improve our safety leadership. This will actually help us in reducing any form of incident and in turn improving workers' morale and satisfaction. Now, there are different styles of leadership. Now, everybody has different abilities, everybody has different management skills, everybody has different leadership skills. If you come to me, my leadership ability or my leadership style may be different from that of Waliu or may be different from that of Abano. But the most important thing, we should not forget that our style should not deviate from what is acceptable. And what is that? Our approach should be to guide, our approach should be to influence, our approach should also be to engage others, to impact employee motivation, communicate, and improve safety behavior. So, whichever form of safety leadership, whichever form of leadership style that you want to use in governing or managing the people under you or your stakeholders, it must actually be tilting towards a good direction to influence, to guide, and to impact people, to motivate people in a way that their safety behavior is actually improved. Now we have different styles. We have transformational, we have transactional, we have servant, we have authority, we also have principal, participative. Now, for the benefit of this section, we'll just focus on a few, such as transformational leadership. Now, these are leaders that actually focuses on vision. They inspire people and also they strive for personal development. Now, if you ask me, I'll tell you that me, I'm more of a transformational leader. Why? Because I feel that the best empowerment you can actually give to anyone is to inspire people and to push friends to or to push colleagues or friends to personal development. And one of such person that actually inspired me on this score is Waliu and my friend Abano. They've been a very good motivation to me. So in turn, we'll try to transfer this leadership ability to people who work directly or who are actually interact with in our various endeavors, be it work, be it social life, be it religion, whichever style. Now, deep down, let's take an honest evaluation and let's ask ourselves, what kind of leadership style do I use in my workplace? You can drop the comments or you can drop our answers on the chat section. What kind of leadership style do I employ in my workplace? What kind of a leader am I? Am I a transformational leader or am I a transactional leader? Now, transactional leaders, they're the kind of leaders that they base their leadership style on rules, performance-based results. Now, these leaders actually place a whole lot of emphasis on compliance and they kind of discourage safety behaviors, creative safety solutions. Now, do I find myself in this category of leadership? Now, this a typical example of this kind of leader is someone who maybe because we achieve a certain LTI score, he offers his bonus or positive reinforcement to his teammates. But then this same person actually starts overlooking someone who starts reporting safety culture. Now, this is a transactional leader. You can see that it's quite different from the other leadership style, the transformational leader. Now, we also have, on the other hand, a servant leader. This same person, he prioritizes services to his employees, to his stakeholders. He builds trust, he builds ownership, and he actively listens to safety concern. What kind of a leader am I? Am I a transformational leader? Am I a transactional leader? Or am I a servant leadership? Or do I possess servant leadership? What kind of leadership am I? I'm looking at some comments. So let's keep our answers coming up. What kind of leader are you? Are you a transformational leader? Are you a servant leader or are you a transactional leader? You know, like we all said before, there is no bad answer. All answers are valid because it's a matter of perspective or where you're coming from. Now, yes, you will get the slide after the whole program. The slide is for public use. So why we keep our answers coming? Let's also be aware that whichever forms of leadership behavior that we choose to employ, like we said earlier, there is no wrong answer. So if I choose to be a transactional leader because it works for me, I should be able to increase the risk perception of my teammates or my subordinates. I should be able to improve their reporting behaviors. I should be able to promote team oneness. Whichever form of leadership behaviors I want to bring to the table, I should be able to influence my team in such a way whereby our risk perception is actually increased, our reporting behavior is on the high side, and also team openness. There are some situations whereby you get to a workplace, the team, you actually see some certain things and no, they are a little bit restricted as per what to say, as per what to say. Now, sometimes there are some positive behaviors whereby if somebody does something, he's not being recognized, or maybe he does something in a certain way, maybe in a different way that actually the leader actually feels that it's supposed to be done, he's not being recognized. However, leaders, as safety leaders, whichever capacity we are serving, we want to ensure that we have visible safety participation. We want to be able to recognize safe actions and engagement in safety audits. In such way, we are actually building a strong and healthy safety culture in our place of work. Now, for those persons who are actually taking this NEBOSH leadership course, it actually has a model that says make it happen model. In that make it happen model, it actually has 4 principles. You set a vision, like we made mention. Each organization has a vision. Each organization has a safety vision that they intend to achieve. Have you set a vision for yourself? Have you engaged people? Because this vision you're actually trying to set, you cannot achieve these visions on your own. That is why you need to engage all your stakeholders. Now, in achieving some of this vision, there might be skill gap. Are you building capacity as a leader to ensure that this skill gap are actually being closed? The results that we actually get, how do we measure this result? How do we deliver this result? Please and please, after this section, we should be able to ask ourselves self-evaluating questions. The kind of leadership style that you actually use in your organization and how effective it has been. Remember, in whichever facet that we need to do, we want to encourage proactive and visible leadership behavior. In this way, it will actually help us in improving our safety leadership, our safety culture, in turn, turning us into effective safety leaders. Now, as leaders, there are some things, human decisions that might actually influence some of the things that we do. Decision making is one hand. Understanding how people, the system, and environment can influence our safety decision is also one thing that we all need to take note of. Now, at our workplace, also in our respective social life, there are a lot of human factors that might actually set in. And one of such human factor could be marked by environmental, our organization, and individual elements that affect our behaviors at work. So as leaders, we should be able to see how our organization, how our environment, how the individual elements affects everything that we do at work. Imagine you want to go on about on a task, or you are trying to set a target. And the target that you need to set, some workplace processes are not the same, or some workplace environment is actually affecting or negatively impacting the vision that you've actually set. You will be able to see that in a long run, all your visions, all your goals will not be achievable. We want to ensure that human factors are not being neglected or pushed to the background when making decisions. Our workload, sometimes fatigue will set in, which is quite understandable and normal. How do we balance these things? The task design that we are supposed to do, how do we value these things? Our communication and also decision making. Sometimes the mode with which you communicate, sometimes the jargons at which you use to communicate might be different. Two teammates' physical and mental capacities are never the same. The way I process my emotions and the way you process your emotions can be different. We might go through the same circumstances. However, I might choose to react differently to it, which is quite understandable. As safety leaders, we should be able to ensure that whatever leadership style that we are trying to use, it should be able to protect or support safe human performance. Like I said, whichever form of leadership style we are trying to employ, we should ensure that whatever design, whatever system we are putting in place, you should be able to support safe human behavior. Now, this is a picture that actually shows us some different or inanimate factors that can actually affect. Please, can you mute that person? Now, these are human factors that can actually affect the way we respond to stuff. Now, we are looking at individual, we are looking at environmental, and we're also looking at some behavioral stuffs. Now, for individual, like we said, no two individuals respond to circumstances same way. Why? Because the way we were raised up, the way we process emotions differs. We need to be able to take note of our skill sets, our team members. We need to be able to identify which works for each one. In that way, we're able to see why the person reasons the way he does, why the person thinks the way he does, why his level of perception of risk actually happens. Now, there are cases whereby somebody has been in the construction industry for a long time. Like, no disrespect to my friends in the construction anyway. Now, this person is actually moving to an oil and gas field. You can see that the way health and safety is being managed in the construction field is quite different from the way it's being managed in the oil and gas sector. It could also be different from the way health and safety is also being managed in the maritime sector. Now, it's understandable that when this person comes, his risk perception might be different. Why? Because of the organization he has actually found himself, the environment he has actually been, and the individuals he has actually worked with. In the construction, you definitely see persons who have little or no technical knowledge, no formal education. Now, this person is actually moving down to an oil and gas that you're actually seeing workers or colleagues that are actually coming that has a high level of maybe educational background. Communication will be a barrier. Individual factors will play out. Now, these things will actually influence the person's leadership abilities and the person's leadership behavior. As safety leaders, let's not forget all of these facts. Let's ensure that whichever form of leadership, we want to ensure that the job factors, the individual factors, the organizational factors will play a major role in affecting our decision making to ensure that we have swift and good operational performance and improving our health and safety culture. Now, there are different types of human error. Now, there are skill-based errors, which can happen to slips, lapses during work routine. There are also rules-based error. Sometimes miscommunication or poor communication can lead to misapplication of procedures. Now, this person is not trying to, he does not want to violate the law, or that was not his original intention of violating safety procedures. But then the way the jargon was actually being written or the procedures, he does not understand it and he misapplied the procedures. That does not mean that this person is actually lacking safety leadership or our teammate does not want to help improve our safety culture. However, we want to see different ways that we can actually understand how human error can actually affect our leadership style. Now, there's also a knowledge gap that actually as a result of poor decision in unfamiliar situation. Like we made mention about the scenario about person, a worker, a safety professional that is actually moving from the construction background to an oil and gas background. Not just safety professionals, employees generally. Now, these persons actually might have some knowledge skill gap. He might be very, very skilled at using some certain equipment, but coming down here, he's seen that same equipment, or more possibly different equipment that is being used differently. Now, skill gap is setting in. And if one is not being careful, overconfidence can actually lead to a lot of incidents. Now, because of our abilities to push our workers, push them to get better, we might actually be making decisions by putting them under undue pressure. As safety leaders, we do not want to intentionally or unintentionally put our subordinates, our stakeholders under pressure. We want to ensure that whichever decision that we are making, it will not give stress or fatigue. It will not cause time constraints. It will not also add peer pressure. Remember, as safety leaders, we must create an environment that promotes thoughtful and wonderful decision making. Let's not, because of the fact that a lot of factors, organizational factors, environmental factors, we want to do so much of ourselves by setting unrealistic demands. Because when you make an unrealistic demand, or when you set an unrealistic demand, you will definitely not have good decision. You are creating a hostile environment for your teammates, whereby peer pressure is all of the day, fatigue will definitely set in, incomplete information will set in, and the next thing that actually happen, you're reducing your safety culture, and also the next thing that will definitely happen is a major incident or an incident that will definitely affect property damage, a likely fatality, or organizational reputation. We do not want to do any of that. Now, when we are making decisions, it is understandable that there are some form of bias that will definitely set in. Possibly I have known a certain information in the past or growing up, or there are certain beliefs that I must have held in the past These bias will actually affect the decision making I'm about to take. Let's say, for instance, during COVID, there was this time Ebola came into existence, and I was then in school, and my mom called me that I should use salt to bathe. Now, that was one of the worst decisions I've ever made in my life, because imagine me, a chemistry student that knows better what salt does to the body. Unfortunately, I had to go and use salt to bathe that morning before going to school. It was after I got into school that my brain started coming back to normal, that, man, you're not supposed to do that. Now, that bias has actually set in. Now, that kind of bias can be called confirmational bias. There's also something that we might also be tempted to do. You might want to make a decision. You know a certain colleague that actually influences the way you take decision. Immediately you go to that colleague because you know that that colleague is always on the same page with you. He will always support whatever you want to do. You go down to him. You already have what you want to do. You've already decided on what you want to do. So what you just need now is just somebody that will support that your bias. Immediately you run to that your favorite team member, that your favorite stakeholder, and he says what you want to hear. And good, you're fine. That decision stands. But as safety professionals, we want to be very careful not to have confirmational bias, because when you have confirmational bias, it might actually start leading to assumption. And when we start having assumption, the next thing that will likely set in is one form of unsafe act. Unsafe act will likely lead to the next one, unsafe condition, and there you go, an incident will set in. Another form of bias we're also looking at for is anchoring bias. This relies on usually the first piece of information. Now, the next slide will actually to show us different types of bias. Now, like we made mention about confirmational bias, which is very easy to identify. Now, there's this one that actually affects all of us, anchoring bias. Let's say in this picture, this guy wants to get a car. Now, he has seen the car. The car is $30,000. Quickly, oh, the car is too expensive. Now, he moves to the next vendor and he sees they are doing a discount off and they're still selling for 30K. Now, this guy will likely come down to this guy that are actually doing a discount because he feels that this guy is actually selling a better product, and at the same time, this guy is actually doing him a discount. Whereas he had actually seen this guy initially the same 30K that he said it was too expensive. He's now coming down to this same person, the next vendor, to buy at the same price because this person has actually given him a sign or a signal that, oh, I'm doing a discount or I'm offering you a discounted price of -30. Now he's looking at that, oh, I've gotten a -30 discount, I'm getting a good deal. Now that is what anchoring bias can actually set in. Now, if we are not careful, these types of bias can actually affect our decision making, and this will actually lead to poor communication. Now, one additional qualities or one other quality that we also need to look out for is communication and stakeholder engagement. More recently, there have been a growing in demand for stakeholder engagement professionals. Communication, communication, communication. A lot of incidents that happened in the past actually boils down to one of the root causes to communication, poor or ineffective communication. Sometimes, whatever we want to do or the plans we want to implement in our place of work can be very, very good. But then, how we share this information and also how we engage our stakeholders also matters. Because if the stakeholders who are supposed to listen, who are supposed to do this task, this vision that you've actually created, who are supposed to raise the safety awareness, they do not properly understand, or they have not been properly informed, or you did not consult them at all, how would they take ownership for safety? So, as safety leaders, let's not forget, whatever act, whichever vision, whichever plan we intend to create, let's ensure effective communication is key. How can we build this effective communication? And how does effective communication matters in occupational health and safety? Now, if I use the wrong jargon, especially with workers with little or no technical knowledge, they will barely understand. And before you know it, they are creating unsafe actions for you. Now you've actually told them that, hey, this is what we want to do, this is what we want to do, this is what you want to do. Imagine going to a construction site where you have people who do not have any form or little or no formal educational background or knowledge, and you're using all kind of safety jargons, trying to explain near miss, trying to explain dangerous occurrences. These same persons, how would they understand? And then you've actually done your two-bus talk with speaking lots of big English. At the end of the day, with lots of jargons, boom, you move to the next site, and then there you know it, the person who you actually spent a lot of maybe like 10-15 minutes doing your two-bus session, he's actually doing something else. How would you feel? Now you will not blame this person entirely because, man, you did a very good job. However, the mode at which you communicated these safe behaviors, these safety plans, these safety goals, these indicators, the person does not understand. Now, we need to be able to ensure that safety leaders want to create and build trust and transparency, want to speak in languages that is well understood by our stakeholders. We also want to encourage honest feedback. We also want to encourage hazard reporting. Now, because if we don't, we are actually creating a very bad safety culture, which will in turn affect our safety values and our expectations. Now, a simple case study is this. Somebody reports an incident. A worker reports an incident, maybe to you or maybe to a safety leader, and you're like, no, you're not supposed to do it this way, you're not supposed to do it this way, you're supposed to do it the other way around. Or possibly he reports it to a top management, and you're like, no, you're supposed to come to me as a safety person on ground. How would you feel, or how would the worker feel when next he sees an unsafe condition, or maybe an unsafe act, or something that will likely cause possible damage, or whichever form it might take? That person will likely stay by, oh no, the one I said before, it was actually used against me. So we want to ensure that feedbacks are actually entertained. We are not always right as safety professionals. Let's have that feedback. Let's engage people meaningfully. When you engage them, you see that you have good and effective solutions, and those solutions will end up giving you good feedbacks and good performance. Now, there are different types of communication guidelines. In health and safety, we have communication mode. And one of such communication mode that we use in cascading safety briefings, one of such is maybe safety meetings or two-bus talk. We also have signages that are actually being labeled. Now, if you go to some places where they have their original language that they speak, it is not out of place that as a proactive safety leader, you have that safety signage communicated in the language at which the locals understand, because it will actually help them understand. Like we said earlier, we need to create an open door policy for reporting HSE concerns. Remember, communication is a two-way street. You give out, you get feedback, the sender listens, and each body understand each other. In that way, we're actually leaving room for messages and for feedback. And of course, when you have those feedback, it actually helps you in engaging your workers properly. Now, what are some of the principles in engagement or stakeholder engagement? If you're engaging your stakeholders, you need to be an active listener, and you also need to be responsive. Now, responsive means that these are the people you interface with daily. The one they are coming to tell you their complaint, nothing has been done. You're not even giving them feedback. Oh, this is the reason why the action has not been carried out. But you expect them to come back the following day. No, you're actually killing the trust that they have. If your safety vision as a safety leader or a manager does not align with what the management or what the workers actually see, or what the workers perceive to be realistic, I can tell you for free that safety values, those are our safety vision, might not see the light of the day. One thing I don't joke with is recognition and positive reinforcement. If a worker does something good, if a worker has a positive behavior or corrects a positive behavior, it is not out of place for you to be able to recognize that worker or possibly reinforce his positive behavior. Whichever form of behavior or positive reinforcement that you choose to employ is best known to you. But then the idea is when you reward a worker or when a worker has that sense of belonging, that hey, I did something and I actually got a recognition, or I possibly got an award. The worker will be moved to do something better the following day. And in turn, his workers, his colleagues, or other stakeholders might of course want to win something or want to be recognized for their good acts. They'll likely pick up those good behavior. And before you know it, collectively, safety values, safety cultures, safety leadership is actually being spread effortlessly among teammates. Now, we need to give room for fairness and trust in communication line. We also need to be a leader who listens and act on feedback. There are some leaders that you actually see, there are some safety professionals that they feel that whatever they say is always the best, whatever they say is always right. There's no room for feedback, there's no room for criticism. And when any form of that comes, you see them with a lot of kickbacks, hey, this. If you are that kind of professional, you will definitely have issues working with that kind of team or working with your stakeholders, because at that point, your stakeholders might not be able to trust you anymore because they feel that, hey, but our voice are actually not being heard. So why do we need to keep talking? So we need to ensure that these safety engagement principles are actually being carried out and being implemented effectively. If we do so, we'll see ways that will actually improve our team and our operational performance. We also need to ensure that we also leave open or ask open-minded questions. We should be able to listen without interfering with whatever the colleagues are asking us. We should be able to listen, acknowledge their concerns, because of course their concerns are valid. This person might be answering this concern by based on his bias he has had in the past, or his maybe his possible valid safety concerns, or his background or his environment. We should be able to listen to this person and follow up. I've seen a lot of incident investigations whereby the next thing you hear is you're blaming the worker for this, you're blaming the worker for that, you're blaming the worker for this, you're being defensive. Now, if workers know that, hey, okay, I've done something bad, the next thing is that I'm going to be blamed, how would the person improve his safety performance? Because the workers are actually working under fear. That should not be the case in wherever we find ourselves. Rather, we want to encourage active and proactive listening techniques, because that will actually help us in doing what we need to do. I don't know if we are following. Please, if anybody can hear me, can you just give me this thing on the chat box? All right. So moving forward, I always tell my colleagues that, my friends, that there are no formal ways in which you want to have a two-boss talk or a safety engagement. Workplace realities differs. However, what matters most is, are you reaching the hearts of these workers? Are the risks properly handled or identified, or are they being properly mitigated? Do the workers who are actually doing this work, are they aware of what's on ground? As a practice safety leader, we want to be able to ensure that we have regular engagement with our teammates, our stakeholders, or the people who work directly under us. As we identify this key hazard and control, please let's encourage feedback. Let's also use real life visual animations, scenarios, ensure that our two-boss talk and engagement are very meaningful. If they are not meaningful, can we add spice to these things to ensure that these people are actually being carried along? Because it's one thing for us to come down to a two-boss session before the work starts, and we are talking here, talking about what has happened in the past, talking about what will go wrong. How can we improve our safety culture? Employ animated behaviors, animated videos, real life examples, scenarios that they will actually understand. In that way, it will give them a feel. People's risk perception differs. A worker that's actually seen a certain form of hazard will be different his risk perception will be different to someone who has actually not seen a real-time incident happen. So whichever way we want to take, let's ensure that our toolbox talk and engagement actually get home, they are straight to the point, and actually hit or performance and we have communication channel. We also have the downward communication channel. From the downward part, we are always looking at the procedures, our policies, our expectations. However, on the upward part, we are looking at for our feedback, our incident reports, our suggestion box, our safety reps. Now, there are different ways that we can actually get this communication line across to our workers. There are different improvement ideas. So, as safety leaders, we need to be very innovative, because if we are not innovative, it will actually affect the way we cascade information to our colleagues. Now, in building a psychological safety, workers need to be able to speak out without fear. Workers should be able to report any form of near miss and unsafe condition. People should always know that innovations are changing, standards are changing every day, and of my network. People need to be able to understand that these standards are not static, right? Standards are changing every day. And don't be scared when some of these improvement ideas are coming from your subordinate or coming from your teammates. As safety leaders, if we want to ensure that we want to build a good and practice safety culture, we should be able to foster innovation and continuous improvement. You agree with me that before some of the ways things are being handled, some of the way incidents are being recorded, they are not the way it is right now. But then things are improving, things are changing. Like we said earlier in the past, and for previous slide, we want to reward and recognize safe behaviors. It could come in any forms that we choose. But whichever way, workers should have a sense of belonging that if I speak up, I'm being recognized, I'm not being talked down. At the same time, this will actually give them a sense of awareness. When we're actually handling situations, especially when things do not go the way we want to remain calm. At the same time, we want to stay clear. We want to use defined emergency control. Now, the reason why they always use the word defined emergency control is because during time of crisis, during time of emergency, we will not always be thinking in the same direction. Why? Because some people always want to scamper for safety, some person want to do this, some person want to do that. But if you have clear down procedures in place, you see that these safety protocols will be followed. And when there's a need for a change, we should be able to provide an update and debrief and learn after an event must have happened. Whichever the event is actually, it could be a near miss, it could also be a real-time incident, it could also be a good performance. We want to see ways that we can actually learn to improve our system. One amazing quality that safety leaders need to have is risk management and assurance. Lately, we've been hearing about enterprise risk management, enterprise risk management. Risk management framework is actually there to ensure that when we identify this hazard, we want to control them and also want to monitor our workplace to ensure that every form of hazard is being eradicated to the barest minimum. Now, what is risk management? Please, who can tell us what risk management is? A quick example of what risk management is. It must not be so elaborate, it must not be so big, just something simple. Who could give us a simple definition of what risk management is? You could drop the answer on the chat box. Yeah, I'm seeing a systematic process of identifying, prioritizing, and controlling potential hazard. That's very, very good. Managing, understanding, and controlling it. So that's very, very perfect. So all our answers, like we all said, there's no wrong answer in this session because everything we're actually pointing, or all the comments we've made, has actually given us a better understanding. It shows that we have an idea. As a matter of fact, we're all wonderful safety professionals who understand what risk management is. Like from the previous definition that we actually from the first message on the chat box, a systematic process of identifying hazard. Now, when you identify this hazard, you look you look out for how to assess this hazard, how to assess the risks. Now, you're looking out for effective control measures, not just compliance, but involving leadership, the workforce, and the system. One thing that we need to know is this: one layer of protection might not be so effective in preventing an incident from happening. That's that on incident investigation. Is a different form of incident investigation method that actually tells us that one protective barrier is not enough to prevent an incident from happening. So it is best that we focus on effective controls that will basically prevent an incident from happening. So basically, simply put, risk management is a process of identifying hazard, assessing the risks, and implementing control measures that focuses on prevention and not just compliance. And in this way, this helps improve our leadership, our workforce, and our system. Risk management must be integrated into all our daily operation and decision making as safety professionals. From the risk management cycle, we've been able to identify the risk identification here. You analyze, you plan mitigation plan, you implement, and also you review to track the effectiveness of whatever you must have done. Because it is one hand to implement control measures. Situations might change. A one safe condition today, tomorrow you might return back to that same environment and the condition has actually turned to an unsafe condition. What do you need to do? You need to be That's why you need to ensure that regular compliance, you need to be able to track whatever you're doing to ensure that, hey, this control that's actually being put in place is effective. We all know the risk control method. You eliminate, of course. You substitute to a safer alternative. You use engineering control. Whichever form of engineering control you want to use is still fine. Administrative, and also the least effective, which is PP. One of the best things that actually happened to me was actually when I learned in process safety that the risk control is different from what you actually see here today, especially in the normal conventional way of managing occupational health and safety risks or hazard rather. But for the benefit of this section, let's just focus on what we know here, how it can actually help us in our leadership ability in our regular places of work. We all know the hierarchy. First of all, you can take it out, eliminate the risk completely, or you substitute. Engineering controls can work, administrative control, and also the least effective, which is the use of PPEs. Now, there are lagging indicators. As safety professionals, as safety leaders, let's not forget that these lagging indicators, they are being used to measure past events. They could be maybe we could use the term reactive indicators. They measure past events such as what have happened in the past, such as our incident, our lost time injury. Whereas our leading indicators are there to help us predict future performance. One of such is the safety audit. Whichever form of the audit that might actually come, you might actually use that safety training, the hours, whatever you want to use. This can actually help us to keep track or predict future performance of our safety indicators. I can see a hand here. I saw a hand raised.
Please go ahead, Mr. John. Any hand raised will be responded to at the end of the session, please.
Okay.
So we can manage our time.
All right. Now there are different investigative methods, right? We have different investigative methods ranging from the 5 whys that a lot of persons actually being familiar with. We also have the fishbone, we have the taproot, and there are a whole lot of them. Whichever forms the organization choose to adopt, there are no hard and fast rules, but whichever form of investigative method that you choose to adopt in your organization, the end game should be on focusing on the failures, on the root cause, and not blaming an individual. Whichever method that you choose to adopt, whichever investigative techniques that you choose to adopt, remember, the focus should be more on the system failure and not to blame an individual. It's just in very rare cases that you see root cause being tilted towards an individual. A lot of times it's always tilted towards management failure or sometimes process violations. So whenever we are actually trying to investigate an incident, let's focus on the root cause. I'm not trying to see how we can actually point fingers at the person who committed the incident, because if all control measures are in place, such incidents will actually be prevented. One way that we can actually prove or improve our safety leading indicators is through audit and inspections. Audits are there to help us verify the effectiveness and also to track compliance. It actually helps us identify unsafe conditions and behaviors. We also have checklists. We also have interviews. And when we do all these things, let's also document our findings. Remember, when we are trying to conduct an audit, these things should be collaborative. We are not there to winch hunt anybody. We are there to engage and allow workers to participate, because active participation actually improves audit assurance and gives you good and quality inspections. Now, in our organizations, we have people, top management, who make decisions. If you happen to be in that category, kudos to all of us there. But then, a certain form of governance is always needed in the safety leadership forum. Now, why do I say so? In ESG, governmental being one of the last framework in measuring an organizational sustainability framework, we have environmental, we have social, and we have governmental. Governmental often overrides even the social and even the environmental policies. Do you know why? Because these governmentals, they make the law. They are the leaders. And if they are not there to allocate resources to some of the safety visions, some of the safety improvements that we have, how would they come to light? Or how would those visions see the light of the day? We want to ensure that our safety leaders want to be able to approve policies, allocate resources, monitor this performance, and review these KPIs. Because if you don't, or if you do not have this board level backing, whatever we do, it will definitely not work. Because you need their commitment, you need their participation, you also need their resources. Resources is always needed whenever you want to carry out any project or any task. It could be whatever form the resources might come, but you need their backing, you need their support. Now, you also need their approval. ISO supports it, ESG supports it. So even the occupational health and safety standard also supports dealership commitment. Now, in this leadership commitment, they are actually being referred to as the governmental factor here because they actually help influences safety performance and behaviors. Now, how does your team reward safety performance? I'll leave you to drop the answers on the chat box, how you tend to or how you influence safety performance in your system. Different organizations have different ways of rewarding safety performance. I'll not tell you how we do ours, but then I'll leave that to you for able to answer that. Now, when we're also making decisions, we also ensure that we anticipate future risks. Let's have that proactive mindset by predicting risks before it happens. Predicting these stuff actually helps you in preventing them. That is where business continuity comes into play. Well, at the same time, when we've done all of this, we need to benchmark, and we also need to help our leaders stay proactive and competitive. In our industry, they are always imagining risks. In whichever factors we do, whichever tasks that we do, there's always something emerging that would likely want to put a risk to whatever job that we are doing. As safety leaders, it is best that we are proactive enough in handling this emerging risks that will likely impact our business line or impact our industry. That shows that you're a safety leader. That shows that you're a safety that shows that you're a safety leader. That also shows that you have the interest of your organization at heart. It also proves that you too can actually empower and lead your team into making good and informed decisions. Now, when we are actually setting decisions, making plans, we want to ensure that we are measuring the right things. Some organizations actually spend a lot of time in focusing on trivial matters that might not actually impact the business line so badly. However, when we focus on the right indicators, it actually reflects on who we are, our culture, and our behavior. Now, one of those right things that we can actually measure, we said it before, our near misses, our observations, our employees' engagement, and also we should stop relying too much on injury statistics board alone because these things can be deceptive. There's a situation whereby an organization I know or I used to know, they were actually trying to downplay their LTI board, inflating, downplaying minor injuries at the same time just because they want to maintain a very good face to the public. Oh, we are having a very good LTI score. Unfortunately, a worker went home because of the injury he sustained at work. Because his teammate had to ask him, "Oh no, you don't need to escalate this situation so that it doesn't affect our board, our rating." This guy went home, and unfortunately, he suffered serious injury as a result of the minor injury that they assumed that he must have suffered at work. So we should stop relying on incident statistics alone. Let's focus on those feedback because from those feedback, we will likely see what will actually go wrong. Now, there are legal compliance and regulatory body that we need to comply to as safety leaders. We'll see how well that these legal compliances will actually help us in preventing incidents and injury, avoid lawsuits and reputational damage. A lot of companies have actually faced fine in recent times. I know one recently that actually faced a lot of fine because of the environmental degradation that actually being carried out in their workplace. It's not a funny thing, especially dealing with this kind of economic reality you are facing in Nigeria, and you're facing fine, regulatory fine from regulatory bodies, sometimes amounting to millions of dollars, sometimes thousands. That will not also speak well enough as safety leaders. We need to be very proactive about these things. We need to demonstrate ethical and responsible leadership. I don't know if everybody can hear me.
Yes, yes, yes. Fire on, please. Yeah, you are doing exceptionally well.
All right, there are lots of health and safety laws that we all know. We're not going to spend so much time here, but then we all know the duties of an employer under the health and safety law. Of course, he's supposed to provide a reasonable and safe working environment for all of us, implement effective risk assessment and controls, and also consult workers on safety matters. ISO supports this. Workers' participation is always very necessary. So there are some organizations that actually go as far as having safety representative, safety committees. This is actually necessary. This shows that these workers they have a say, even though their decision making from the workers might not affect the final decision making or the final outcome. It is always advisable that at least let them have a say in whatever they are doing. Because when they have a say, the likelihood that they will take ownership is almost 100%. But if you make a decision without consulting them and you're making them to comply, there's every tendency that a few would likely kick back. Workers have a right. They need to refuse whatever unsafe work. So if a worker or a colleague or a subordinate or a stakeholder is telling you that, hey, I cannot be able to do this, we should find a way and manage it because that is within his right. He also has the right to participate in safety programs. He also has the right to report whatever unsafe act without fear of retaliation or without him being scared of he's going to be victimized whichever way it comes. Some organizations that actually encourage whistleblowing policy. That is something that ESG is actually coming to take. ESG is coming hard on in their governmental frameworks. They are telling the organizations, "Hey, you need to have a whistleblower platform." anti-fraud policy, where you need to have it documented in your system, whereby these things, workers need to use them so that at the end of the day, if they're actually being victimized, they can use the whistleblower platform as a means of protection. So please, as a safety proactive leader, I know it's not so easy, but let's have either feedback channel or let's create a whistleblower platform whereby workers can actually escalate their concerns or report whatever worries that they are having. Now, we also have record keepings. We also have for keeping up to the requirements. OSHA has their standards. RIDO has their standard. There's also more on environmental spills, pollution, internal tracking, and all of that. All these things are requirements that we should not joke with. Whichever our industry is peculiar or known for, we should look out for those regulatory bodies that are actually attached to our organization or that is primarily our stakeholders and see how well we can actually do what they need to also do to avoid any form of litigations or penalties or fines. Now, we know the consequences of not meeting up to the requirements. Sometimes it could actually lead to fine, sometimes disqualification, loss of contract, reputational damage, or sometimes public backlash. We do not want something of that nature to happen. You can imagine the situation of that refinery in Texas. This image is not a very good one. Imagine you're at work and you know a friend who actually works in this kind of situation, that works in this kind of in this workplace, in this refinery, and you're seeing these things on the media that day. And hey, there's an explosion in this refinery that your friend works. How would you feel? The first thing that would basically come to your mind is that my friend's organization is actually a very nonsense place to work. Why would they do this? Why would they do that? It has actually affected a lot of persons. Now, this is the aftermath of another incident that actually happened. This is actually not a good thing. Now, other than the fact that these guys will be out of job for a longer time, how are the fatalities, the public image, the lost time hours they've actually had? This organization has actually taken a long time. This building is still there. No operation is actually going on. Now you can imagine people who actually dependent on these industries for their livelihood. At this point, they have no choice than to stay at home because of one mere mistake or something that would have been actually been done to prevent such from happening. Now, as safety leaders, our role in compliance should be able to help and apply legal requirements. There are different regulatory bodies that is actually or directly impact our organization. For the maritime, we have NIMASA, we have MAPO, we have MPA. We should be able to apply these legal requirements to ensure that we prevent litigations. That is our role. If I'm working in the food industry, I should know that NAFDA should be my key stakeholder. If I'm working in the pharmaceutical, I should look out for the stakeholders or the regulatory body that will basically impact my business. Whichever industry that you are, look out for those stakeholders that will basically impact your business and make it a duty or a point of call to ensure that you keep up with our standards that or policies or procedures that you are supposed to conform to. Your policies should be up to date. You'll be able to lead audits, train your team, and also monitor their performance. As safety professionals or as safety leaders, we are not just enforcers, we are educators, we are strategists, and also we are also an advocate for safe operation. I'm not in that school of thought whereby you come to a place of work, you're always on the hit, go, this person not doing this person not doing this. You're always focusing on compliance, compliance, compliance. If workers are not complying, there should be a reason why they are not complying. There's always a root cause of why workers are not complying. But once you engage them, once you educate them, when you strategize effective method, you see that compliance will not just be something that has to be monitored. This will come from a heart. This will come naturally. People will know what they need to do. At the same time, they will be moved to carry out those regulatory guidance or what is expected of them. At the same time, we also need to understand those duties. We should be able to apply principles of civil and criminal liability. We should be able to promote reasonable practical risk control. There are some risk control that might not be so practical depending on the business you are doing. There might also be some risk controls that, because of the financial implication of implementing that risk, it might not be so effective, or it might not be so realistic, or it might take a longer time for it to be implemented. We want to see how we can promote reasonable practical risk control, and we want to use legal precedents as a means to help in decision making. That takes us to yet another interesting part of this our training slide that has to do with emergency response and crisis leadership. Now, there's crisis management. There's also emergency response. I don't know who can actually tell us the difference between emergency response and crisis management. A quick one in the chat box. Emergency response and crisis leadership and crisis response. Now, we're always very, very conversant with emergency response, right? Because emergency response actually helps us as a means of proactive way in preventing, or when something goes bad, it actually helps us in preventing issues or unsafe conditions from escalating. But then, crisis management, it has to do with the bigger picture here, identifying threats to our organization, to our stakeholders, and also how to respond effectively to these threats. As safety leaders, we need to be able to ensure that we make strategic decision making during this high level of uncertainties. Now, it could be the crisis could actually be in different form. It could be reputational management. It could come in the form of damage to reputation, stakeholder coordination, and long-term planning and recovery. As safety leaders, as safety professionals, we should be able to ensure that whatever we do, we are actually being prepared for crisis when crisis happen. Now, there's also an emergency action plan. This helps us in preparing for an emergency. It shows us evacuation procedures, their alarm system, for it could be fire sprinkler, the smoke detectors, and the rest. The roles and the responsibilities. Who and who? Do they know what is expected of them? How is the communication protocol like? The medical response team or the medical response plan. Do the workers know where the first aid box is actually located? Do they have trained emergency responders? Because when an incident happens, that is when you start seeing lots of gap in our system. Looking back a few weeks, you also saw what happened somewhere in Lagos. It wasn't a very pleasant experience. But then it goes on to tell us how well we can actually prepare for an emergency. Please and please, in our organization, in our system, whichever thing we need to do to ensure that we have an emergency plan in place, let's not fail to carry it out. Let's ensure that we have the backing of the management. In that way, we'll be able to drive effective leadership and emergency response in our organization and also in our existing system. Now, there are some principles that has to do with crisis management. In crisis management, it's always the bigger picture. Now, how do we prepare and how do we prevent it? Are there clear leadership roles? We need to plan for simulation, almost the same with that of emergency response. We also need to carry out post-crisis evaluation and learning, and also support psychological safety in whatever we do. Now, a typical crisis was COVID-19. COVID-19 caused a lot of issues because it was a bigger picture, way bigger than what one organization could actually face. Now, how would they respond? It affected the oil and gas seriously so bad. Some actually could have not even been, some organizations have not been able to stand on their feet. Some have. Now, after COVID-19 introduced a lot of new risks and also a lot of opportunities. Now, if an organization or if your current organization do not have a crisis management plan in place, I think we need to go back to our drawing board to ensure that should in case we are being hit with any preventing crisis. Now, organizations that are actually very resilient, they'll be able to adjust to the post-COVID realities. Some are telling the organization, oh, we need to start working from home, we need to start doing this, we need to start doing that. Some organizations that do not want to adjust is still also struggling of finding their feet. So we should not be very reactive about these things, or we should not wait for something to get bad before we start looking for what to do. We need to be very proactive about these stuff. Now, in emergencies, it is very easy for us to start having a lot of behaviors, tantrums here and there, especially when we are being put under pressure. We need to stay calm because our subordinates are actually looking up to us. We need to be very decisive and have clear communication guideline in place. Imagine somebody who is actually having an emergency or who is actually undergoing some big form of crisis and he's coming to work just because he needs to show up for work. And you, as a safety leader, the least you could do, you're for finding the person, blaming the person for the person's action, instead of showing empathy and support. How do you think this team member will feel? In that way, you're trying to reduce the safety culture and at the same time trying to water the person's effort. This person will in turn share that same peer pressure to his fellow colleagues. And of course, you know what happens in the long run. The safety leadership culture or the traits or the team's morale will just go down automatically. At the same time, we need to be very adaptful, we need to be very resourceful, and also we need to be very visible, we also need to be accountable. Feedbacks are not always so interesting to hear, especially when it's not coming from a place of where we expected it to come from. But that does not mean that we shouldn't be open to feedbacks. We are all human beings, we all make mistakes, we are not always right. I know that a lot of us, as much as we say, I like feedback, but when those feedbacks come, sometimes you always, this feedback, where is this person coming from? Is this person coming to attack my values or so? But then we should be open to feedback. Now, we should have clear roles defined. We should have who is in charge of our emergency response. As safety professionals, sometimes we are saddled with so many responsibilities. We might not be everywhere at every point in time. It is not out of place for us to have an incident controller. We'll need to have a dedicated emergency response team. Now ask yourself, does my organization, do we have a proactive emergency response? Proactive, I mean, are they being trained? Do they know what is expected of them? Or do we just focus our emergency response on just fire or first aid? Come on, there are different types of emergency, depending on the kind of environment and where we find ourselves. Do we have a crisis management team? Do we have fire warders? Do we have first aiders? Do we have technical advisors? Sometimes do we have workers representative? All these things actually help in actually promoting safety leadership. Now, when an emergency or a crisis has happened, it is always best we do not always run to the media. Because most organizations that we know, they usually have dedicated spokesman who handles all form of communication channel. We should leave that to them to handle. Because poor communication can further lead to more crisis. If communication is not handled properly or is not cascaded properly, you see that instead of trying to solve the crisis, it will further escalate it. So we want to try as much as we can to have that transparency. We want to have that empathy. We should also be able to monitor our social media and public sentiment. And more so, let's coordinate with emergency responders and regulatory bodies. Now, you can imagine where you have a major emergency in your place of work, and the fire fighting, maybe Lagos State firefighting is coming to your rescue. And instead of it for you to cooperate with them, you're trying to be, oh, no, no, just because you want to trivialize the incident. You're actually giving a bad reputation or a bad image to the organization, and more so to yourself. And more, it doesn't tell good on your leadership style, it doesn't tell good on your personality. So, we need to be able to discuss how communication can affect our relationship or can further escalate a crisis or de escalate a crisis. It is important that when we have all this in plan, we need to have channels where people can be able to vent, people can be able to come to this way as a means of relief that, hey, if I come down to work, I meet a certain body or I meet this person, this person in charge, I should be able to provide, or I should be able to get on-site counseling or on-site relief. People experience traumas differently. When these things happen, we want to ensure that we monitor these people who are actually experiencing crisis, have resource available to be able to ensure that this crisis, this person is actually being managed in the right order. Acknowledge that they have trauma. Do not try to water down their feeling. Hey, you're a man. Hey, you're this. You're not supposed to be doing this. You're not supposed to be doing that. No, that shouldn't be the time for all of that. We want to ensure that these things are properly managed properly. We also need to learn from major events that must have happened. We've seen issues that happen in COVID-19. Organizations that are actually very resilient, they've bounced back to operation. But the ones that are not, they're still struggling. The deep down water horizon that a lot of safety professionals are very familiar with. Some of the root causes in that incident was leadership accountability and transparency. So it goes a long way to tell us that when an incident happens, what we need to do is this. We need to learn from it. We need to prepare and we need to be able to take charge so that should in case we are faced with any form of responsibility, we have the mental capacity, we have the resilient ability to be able to face whatever crisis and be able to move on. Now, why dealing with these emergencies? Why dealing with leadership? One thing is always constant is change. That takes us to the second to last topic that we are supposed to we are going to handle, management of change. Changes happen all the time. Of course, people are always looking for greener pasture. Some people wants to jack bar and the rest. Now, when this change happens, management of change, we need to ensure that these changes does not affect our existing safety culture that we have in our system. Now, management of change, like we're all familiar with, is a formal process to assess and control risks before implementing any change. Now, some of these change could be equipment or technology. Now, AI is taking the whole world by storm. Sustainability is on the other hand. ESG is there, net zero, and all of that. Now, people at organizations are trying to track whatever they do, their carbon footprint and the rest. They are always introducing new equipment to plant to our site, new plants and new and all of that. How do we ensure that this new equipment that you're actually bringing to the site to make work easier is not introducing further risks? The work procedures, the work practices, organizational structure, legal practices and updates, we need to be ensured that there is continuity and there is compliance in whatever we do. In management of change, we have about 6 frameworks here. It talks about strategy, you organize, you measure, you improve, you motivate, and you also use teamwork. Because when these things happen at work, workers are always confused. Sometimes it introduces new risks. How do we manage them? So, in our management of change process, do we have a clearly defined ways how we update our management of change? Have we defined? Have we analyzed? Have we planned? Have we also executed and also reinforced this management of change to ensure that whichever new risk that is actually being introduced to our workforce is being eliminated to the barest minimum? Now, some of the one of the disadvantages of management of change is that you might end up skipping updating your risk assessment. I could give you a typical example of what happened more recently. There was a management of change, and unfortunately, the risk register was not updated. Now, something happened, and you want to blame the worker for it. No, but then the worker is not familiar with the new risk assessment because originally the particular workplace was actually designed for something. Now you've actually introduced a newer equipment, newer processes, newer design to the workplace without updating your risk assessment. Now you do not have a risk assessment for that particular task that you've actually created. Now, in a bid to simplify your work process, you've actually introduced an additional risk, which should not be that. As safety professionals, as safety leaders rather, we want to ensure that we avoid these pitfalls. We want to overlook temporary changes. We want to update informations because when we do, it will actually help us to improve our system. Performance evaluation is one thing because having improved your system, things might actually go wrong. An unsafe condition today might end up becoming a safe condition today, might end up becoming an unsafe condition tomorrow. That is why we also need to ensure that performance measurement and continuous improvement, this will actually help us in keeping track of whatever we are doing. As safety leaders, our measurable outcome should include our incident rates, our compliance. It's one thing to train your workers. It's also another thing to check the effectiveness of the training that you've given to them. Sometimes you might actually do a training just because you just want to check the box. But then, this same incident will definitely happen again, and there will be a knowledge gap. So when we train, we want to give room for a training effectiveness. This effectiveness will always come from feedbacks. We also need to look at the environmental impact of the HSE performance. Look at our lagging and leading indicators and see how these things can actually help us in avoiding incidents. Now, when we improve our safety performance, we are not just avoiding incidents, right? We are also building a proactive safety culture because those workers that actually do the right thing when you're not even there, it goes a long way to tell you if we actually have a good safety culture. Safety culture will not always be when the safety guy is there, when you are around there. No. If my workers would just want to have complied to safety rules because my presence is there, it actually tells me one thing: I'm not doing so well in my safety leadership. So we need to look inwardly to see how well that we can actually do that. We need to look at the lagging indicators and also our leading indicators, how they need to be relevant, how they need to be actionable, and how they need to be measurable. Or rather still, our leading indicator, our performance indicators should be smart. They should be specific, they should be measurable, accurate, recordable, and time bound. This will actually help us in improving our system. Continuous improvement is one thing that even ISO is always advocating for because no system is static. Systems are always bound to continuous improvement and all. Now, in ISO principles, which is 45001, focusing on occupational health and safety management system, he helps us identify gaps, analyze root causes, implement corrective actions, you monitor, and you also celebrate your success, not just the LTI, not just the near misses. Let's also celebrate whatever success we must have achieved. If we're able to achieve a rateable good time LTI board, fine, it's something that we need to achieve, that we need to celebrate it. If it's something that we're able to reduce a certain form of lagging indicators or improve our lagging indicators, it's something that we need to celebrate. At the same time, we also need to share learnings from it because it is from those learnings that our colleagues, our teammates, other stakeholders will be able to improve. One of those ways we can actually measure this performance is our safety dashboard, our scorecard. Some organizations have incident tracking software. Audit is one hand, survey is also another one. Engagement tools are also there. You also have environmental monitoring system. I don't know the kind of the system or whichever tools you guys use in your organization, but it will be fine for us to put that in our chat box so that possibly, if it's not confidential, it may be other organizations who are actually needing or who need something similar can actually borrow a leaf from. So, which tools or which safety performance tools does the organization currently use in tracking all your safety performance indicators? You can actually put that in the chat box for whichever organization or whichever person that it will be of help to. Because in that way, it will actually help us in monitoring and keeping an effective safety performance indicators, which will in turn help us to become proactive safety leaders. Also, while we do these things, we also need to benchmark whatever is internal system we must have set for ourselves. Benchmark that with what is applicable out there. Our system is not always perfect. So see what other organizations are actually doing. Look out for ways you can actually benchmark. Reach out to safety network like what we are having right now. Participate in forums. Go for external events. External audit actually helps you. Okay, this is where I'm doing better. This is where I need to improve. And that is where we have external audit that will actually help you. So when you hear an external audit is coming, do not always panic. Oh, these people are coming to expose my system. No, the system, they're only trying to improve your system to ensure that whatever you have on ground be able to meet modern realities and also help you prevent any form of incident that you might actually face in your business. Like we said, we need to celebrate our success and share learnings. Build a culture of transparency and growth. Whichever form, it could be town hall, it could be newsletter, it could be any form. Please and please, let's ensure that we spread these our learnings to our colleagues because it actually helps them. It reinforces positive behavior. We all know how we actually celebrate our wins, right? Whichever way we actually choose, the most important thing is it effective? Are workers sure? The workers have that sense of belonging that whatever they are doing, they are being rewarded? Or if they are not, their actions are not being rewarded, are there other positive reinforcement plans that my organization is actually put into good use that actually implement? Let's have that at the back of our mind. Now, for everything, there's always the backside to it. In our performance indicator, in a bid to have a lot of information, we might end up having a poor quality work or maybe an overloaded data. Or sometimes we might end up focusing on just our lagging or relying on our lagging indicator. There are some persons organizations who are always very resistant to change. Now, these are some of the issues with safety performance measurement. However, what we need to do is we need to ensure that our indicators are realistic, they are smart, they are specific, right? Because it will actually help us because no two organizations' reality is the same, remain the same. So we should avoid the pitfalls while ensuring that whatever we need to do, we are having good and realistic information that will actually help us to improve our system. Now, in strategic HSE leadership, how can we imbibe safety culture or how can we imbibe safety into our strategic culture and our execution? Because it is one hand for us to have that leadership ability. How can we implement these things? There are different traits of an effective safety leader, and one of such is someone who is always willing to learn something new. Like I said earlier, we are not always right. We do not always have the best of knowledge. Standards are changing. We might have people who are very, very young, who are very resilient, who are internet savvy. Of course, these persons, they're always exposed to internet-based information and all of that. Now, because this information is actually coming from them, it's not a reason or it's not a good time for us to start watering down whatever the information they must have come. We should be open-minded. We should make risk-based decision making. We should also have clear communication line. We should be committed to safety. We should have that empowerment of others. There's a popular saying that I said that goes on to say that you know a good leader by his followers. A good leader empowers his followers. But however, it goes the other way around. So we do not want to be that leader who is trying to hoard information from his followers. Rather, we want to see how we can actually empower them, guide our followers, our stakeholders to ensure that we're actually making very good and informed decision making. Now, no, this is not it. Now, for strategic safety vision, we want to ensure that our safety leaders, we are not working in opposite direction with our organization. No. So, whatever safety objective we are trying to set, it should be in tandem with our business goals. Because if the business is not there, we will not be in the business. We will be out of job. So, whichever safety goals safety objective we are trying to set, we should ensure that it aligns closely with what is obtainable with the business. Now, we should not just focus on just the short term. We should look at the long term impact of whatever decision or whatever vision that we are trying to set. Whatever vision that we want to set, we want to communicate those visions to our teammates, to our stakeholders, because only us cannot implement this vision. You need your stakeholders. And if your stakeholders are not carried along, those visions cannot be translated into actionable plans. We need to engage stakeholders at all levels. Stakeholder engagement is a different ball game, it's a different course entirely. Because for you to be able to identify or map out all your stakeholders. But then you should be able to look at those persons who actually impact your business or who directly who your business directly impacts them. So you should be able to see how you can actually marry all of these persons together. Safety, whatever we do, we are here to unify all teams because we can't do it alone. Once you unify these things, unify different groups, different individuals, you see how well you'll be able to drive performance. And you see that your organization will be doing very, very well in this regard in managing occupational health and safety behavior. Now, in building a safety culture, we want to ensure that trust, transparency, consistency is the order of the day. Because if these things are lacking, if I do things or if I'm a leader that at the end of the day somebody confides in me and I'm hearing whatever I've confided in my leader or in my teammates or in my boss, I'm hearing that in somebody else folder or somebody else having a conversation or a side talk or chit chat or whatever. What is the rationale or what reason do you think I'll have by coming to tell you my consent? Now, a worker is actually giving you his health status or his health information, and the next thing you're doing is trying to cascade that information or trying to have a side talk with a friend or a colleague or thereabout. That will actually undermine any form of trust he must have had. So we need to have that trust in ourselves. We need to show transparency. We also need to be consistent with whatever we do at work because in that way, we're actually improving our safety culture. Now, at all levels, at the top, we need to set the tone and allocate resources. If you are a safety manager, if you're a safety supervisor, or heading an affair, or a lead safety role, we need to ensure that the resources you are actually allocated will actually do what we need to be done and also will not impact the business negatively. We need to translate all our strategy into actions because the management wants to see actions, not lots of talking, lots of this, lots of that. Your teammates should be able to see the behavior. How well are you doing to coach them? Because you have all the knowledge, you have all the leadership abilities, they do not. But the ability for you to cascade or infuse this knowledge, these leadership abilities into them will actually help them carry out their daily tasks. Leadership is not a title. Let's know that. Leadership is not a title. Even the youngest person in your team can actually lead. It's more of a mindset. That's why we ask that question from the onset. Are leaders born or leaders are made? We'll be able to understand that leaders are made because these things come over time. We culture these abilities to become leaders. We are not born into these things. Though even though some persons have that innate desires to lead all the time, but it's not always the case, right? So we need to ensure that everyone take the lead in managing occupational health and safety. We need to define our safety vision, assess our current safety culture. Going back to work on Monday, I should be able to ask myself, how well is my team doing? What is the safety culture in my team? Have I set strategic goals? Okay, what about the goals that we set in January? How well have we met them? If we've not met them, it is still fine. It's not out of place. Can we re-strategize to ensure that these goals can actually be carried out within the next few months? Or if no, can we realign or replan or re-strategize so that by the next coming year, the next coming quarter, we can be able to achieve our goals? We need to also monitor and adjust. At the same time, we also need to celebrate and sustain. Now the question goes, your organization, where are you in this cycle? Are you at the point where you've defined your safety culture or have you assessed? So have that self-evaluation. Look inwardly. What needs to be done? If it's something that needs to be if there's a proactive need that maybe something is missing, then we need to go back to the drawing board to see how we can actually improve our system. We also need to ensure that in our safety reaction interactions as leaders, because we are HSE leaders, because we are this, because we are that, it's not a guarantee that we want to isolate from the workers. No, we want to have regular interaction with the workers, ask open-minded questions, because it's from those open-minded questions you'll be able to see feedbacks and areas for improvement. We also want to listen actively, reinforce positive behavior. I always use the word reinforce. Positive reinforcement is one thing because if a worker is actually being rewarded for doing carry out an unsafe act, there's every tendency that he will want to do better next time. There's every tendency that the next worker will also want to imitate him or do something right because he needs that certain reinforcement that you actually gave to the other worker who did something good. Now, when we see an unsafe act, maybe we'll see an unsafe condition. It is one thing for yes, we need to issue a stop work order, right? But how do we do this thing respectfully, considering the emotions and the feelings of these same persons? How do you correct an unsafe act, an unsafe condition, by making the worker understand that this thing I'm doing it for your own good and not just for a point of compliance alone? As safety leaders, we need to be able to ensure that our safety engagement scores are being tracked. Our culture, we should be ensure that how do we track? We need to set out parameters in tracking our safety culture, our near miss reporting, and also our feedback and our leadership style. We are not always right. Some workers might also have something to tell you. Some workers might also have some very good initiative that they have in store. But then, if you close that feedback, that line of channel, that communication line, you might not have anything. You might not be able to improve. You might be thinking that you're doing well. However, you're failing apart. Now, this is one of the Piper Alpha oil rig disaster that happened in 1998, where 167 workers were actually killed. Now, during the investigation, these are some of the leadership response that they had. They were able to save just 37 lives. Survivors made life-saving decisions under pressure. It led to major regulatory reforms in the oil and gas. Now, would you say that this industry or this incident, there was a clear management and leadership in this whole incident? Can we say that there was a clear leadership commitment on the part of the Piper Alpha management? Was there anyone? I'm sure there was none at all. So, as safety leaders, let's not leave anything to chance. Let's always have clear protocols, empowerment, decision-making decision, and investment in emergency infrastructure. Because at the time, no one control is perfect. However, the emergency response that we have could be the best thing that will be able to save us when there's a time for an emergency. Now, this is a call to action. As safety leaders, we need to be accountable. We need to own safety outcomes. If it fails, let's ensure we fail safely. And also, let's also lead by example. We also need to be ensured that the communication line we use, we speak clearly in languages that our stakeholders understand, our workers understand. Now, we also need to listen carefully and offer open dialogue. Now, there will always be knowledge gap. We also need to ensure that there's training for these persons so that you upskill them. So there will be no reason for a training gap. We also need to uphold the safety integrity even when no one is watching. Remember, it is what people do when you're not watching. That goes along with tell you how well they're actually doing their safety culture. We also need to be alert to hazard and behaviors and proactively start with awareness. And also, we need to build a safety culture coming from a point of care, support, and psychological safety. In this way, we will be able to stand out as effective safety leaders and also help our organization build a good safety culture, harnessing the good operational performance that we have in our team. This is the end of our section, and I'm sure that we have a lot of questions, right? So I'm seeing a lot of feedback. Can I have presentation? Of course, you will. Everybody will have this. Wally will definitely share. He already has a slide already on the PDF and also on PowerPoint. Of course, he will. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm open for questions and also open for feedback
All
too.
right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for this wonderful presentation. This is the kind of presentation that you will do and you just drop mic and just leave. A drop mic standard kind of presentation. When I first saw the slide, when I first saw the number of slide and the content, I was like, are you sure that you're going to deliver this thing within the stipulated time? But obviously he has done justice. We have seen requests for slide, please. When we are about to ask questions, apart from issue of slide, please let us ask questions. There are so many things and we are not sharing slide to any email address. We are not sharing slide to any email address. If you need the slide, you can chat me up we'll forward it to you. So that is it. So please, I can see Mr. Bakar Tajuddin. Because of time, we want to manage our time very well. We are to end by 7. So we'll take just 1 or 2 questions. If you have any further information you would like to get or further questions, Mr. Eta John can share his details. Also, please, one of us quickly, before we go to the question and answer session, one of us need our assistance. He needs us to respond to souvenir. I think he has once sent it. I'm trying to check and resend now. He has sent it to us that we should help him to respond to a particular questionnaire. I'll be resending it now for us. Please let us assist. Like we said, together we grow together. So I've sent the link to the group, and we want you to help us to fill that particular questionnaire. And also, before going to question and answer session, because people will start exiting now, let us also remember that setting the pace 4.0 is around the corner. We would like to give this formal awareness about the program, and we would like to have us understand, what was I saying? I was talking about setting the pace 4.0 is around the corner, and we'll be appreciating you. Registration will start coming in soon. We all know about setting the pace, and the fourth section, the fourth series, the fourth conference will be happening very, very soon, January 17. And also, we have HSE Professionals Hangout. Hangout is not all about work from January to December. We also need to create time to connect and rest, relax, have fun, play games, play football, and have good time together. So the HSE Hangout is also ongoing. If you're interested, you can chat me up. And also, the last quarter, our ISO courses from Quarter Safety Consult between October and December, our ISO courses registration is ongoing, EOSH courses, PSM, Advanced Incident Investigation, and so many of our level 2, level 3 courses, ISO 9001, 14001, IMS, 5001. Many of our courses are actually being registered for now, so you can also join the train. So thank you so much once again, Mr. Eta John, for your wonderful presentation. And we appreciate everyone. You can see so many of us here. I can see Weasley always here with us. I can see Mr. Timitope Mudili, our leader in the house. Thank you so much for joining us, sir. We certainly appreciate you. And so many of us, we won't start mentioning names of everyone who have been with us right from day one. I can see Mr. Bakari. I can see Mr. Mote Mitokwe. Yes, by January, by God's grace, January we'll start neighbors training by God's grace. Mr. Callisto is always with us. Shinimi Okafo. I can see Mr. David Ogenepawon. I can see so many of us. I can see Hakim. I can see Mr. Fatih Muhammad. Please, let's respond to the souvenir. I can see Engineer Sylvester always with us. Mr. Emmanuel Fatokun, thanks for joining. Mr. John, Mr. Joseph, so many of us are here. Thank you once again for taking your time to be part of our weekly enlightenment series. And this was really very powerful, very, very powerful, very, very powerful. I can't add, I can't subtract, I can't divide. He has nailed it completely. So on this note, let's quickly go to question and answer session. I can see only one person has raised his hand, Mr. Bakari Tajuddin. Please kindly unmute and ask your question quickly, sir. Mr. Bakari, your hand is up. For the last time, because of time, Mr. Bakari, your hand is up. Please, can you unmute? Okay, let me see. Let me unmute you. Let me ask you to unmute. I've asked you to unmute. You can unmute now.
Thank you, sir. I want to appreciate ETA for this full presentation. My question quickly is this. In a situation whereby an organization let's assume they are in they are proactive HSE ladder, and they have a contract whereby you need other companies to come and support you. And you know, those companies will have different they'll be in HSE culture. Now, how do you manage that? Because you also, like you said, you need to have you have gotten your vision, and you want this guy to help you to achieve your vision. Meanwhile, their cultural level is different. Their cultural level is different. How do you manage so way that you are going to you're going to they will going to help you to achieve your vision? Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, sir, for your question. You know, in different organizations, in a Bosch, like we learned how to manage when you're having multiple contractors in the same site. Now that's a risk entirely on its own because people's perception to risk, people's culture will actually want to influence yours before you know peer pressure will want to set in. So the best you can actually do is see how you can actually engage, because it is from engagement you'll be able to understand okay their level of their perception to risks. Because if you
It's
not
low.
engage them and you've tried to do things your own way, they will likely be a hazard to your own operation, right? So I personally feel that if you engage them, try to see how you can actually meet them up to your own standard. It will actually help you to help your organization in turn, and also lower your expectations to increase their own, increase their own safety consciousness rather.
All right, thank you very much, sir, for that response. I think that is okay. I can see Mr. Ronald. Please kindly unmute now. Mr. Ronald, I've asked you to unmute. You can ask your question, please.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. My question is, actually building the leadership in safety normally require a lot of, I can say, it requires a collective responsibility. So how can we be able to inculcate the safety culture, especially in an area whereby you find that people normally ignore the basic things?
So, like we said earlier, it's always best when you try to understand why they feel, why they think the way they think. Because if people have different risk perception, somebody who has not seen a real-time incident, right, happen, and you're trying to explain that hey, an incident can happen, his perception, risk perception will be different to somebody who has actually experienced or seen a real-time incident from happening. So what you need to do at that point in time is try to come down to why they think the way they think first. Also, try to see how you can actually communicate to them, engage them. We spoke about workers' participation, right? Get them involved into the process. Get workers accountable. If people are accountable, you now see that hey, this safety is actually coming not from a point of just compliance, but from a point of care. Like I said earlier, there's something I actually use in most of my workplace. I always use positive reinforcement. If you do something good, I reward you for it. When I reward one, I reward the second person. Everybody wants to do the right thing at that point in time. Because if humans who actually wants recognition. So if somebody's being recognized, oh, subconsciously he wants to do the right thing. So it actually works for me. I think if you be able to communicate very well, engage them properly, and also this thing, that stakeholder engagement where they have their voice is actually being heard. I think we are to a large extent to improve them.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. John Etta, for the wonderful presentation. We won't take any more questions now. Now we're going to presentation of certificate, and please, I would like to call on Mr. David Ogenepawon. Are you there? Please, can you help us to present this certificate to Mr. John? Mr. David Ogenepawon, are you there? Let me see. Okay, okay, I'm asking you to unmute now. Please, I've asked you to unmute.
All right, so I'm mute, on mute.
All right.
Confirm you can hear me.
Loud and clear, sir.
All right. So on behalf of Quador, I would like to present this certificate to the distinguished speaker of today's amazing presentation. To the person of Mr. John Atta, thank you very much for the insightful section, for the knowledge sharing, and for also exposing some of us to some aspects of the different types and categories of leadership. Thank you very much, and then do receive this certificate of appreciation. Over to you, Mr. John Atta.
Thank you very much, Mr. David. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. John Atta, for this wonderful presentation. And as usual, we will be having another session again coming up very soon. Like we used to say, this platform is for everyone. This platform is for everyone. It's not just for some caliber of professionals. If you know that you have something that you can share, something that people can learn from, yes, there's always something that people can learn from you. No one is an island of knowledge. We've had a chain of professionals, leaders who has enlightened us on this platform. As you can see, this is the 89th webinar. And this 89th is only the one that we could capture that is live on YouTube. Before we started capturing them on YouTube or uploading them on YouTube, we've been doing some that we didn't capture. But this is the ones that we could keep record of. So having 80 or 90 plus of webinar means that different persons, different professionals, including myself also, they've used this platform to educate us, to enlighten us, to build our competency capacity by just going through our YouTube channel and watching these various enlightenment videos and short videos. You will gain a whole lot of experience. So if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, I would advise that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have more than 300 videos, more than 350 videos, short videos on safety, podcast videos on leadership, on ESG, and long training sessions, 1 hour, 2 hours on various topics, incident investigation, root cause analysis, job analysis, risk assessment, safety data analysis. So many courses, short courses are there for you to learn from. And it is all coming. Most of them comes from this wonderful enlightenment series. So please, once again, thank you so much, Mr. John. Thank you, everyone. We are expecting you to also come on board. Send us a message, tell us the topic we want to discuss about, and we will fix you directly. We already have someone that will be taking us in the next 2 weeks again on a very important topic. And after that, we hope that we will have others too who will also come on board to educate, to enlighten, and to build our capacity and competence. Like we always say, together we can only get better. No one can say that he wants to get better, want to be the best at what he does in isolation as a person. You need to collaborate, you need to build that capacity through relationship and through learning from others. And one beautiful thing also is that when you allow people to learn from you, when you train people, you get to know it better. And this is just a testimony. When you train people, when you teach people like this, you yourself, you know it more. There are so many, in fact, we were doing a training last week on permit to work, and I used a particular example that I've never thought of in my life because of the fact that I've consistently been training people on that course. Different ideas will come in. So when you train people, you're also building yourself. So let us hear from you. Send me a message, send me a DM, and we'll also fix you to come online, to come live and enlighten our people. And also remember, it will also be live on YouTube, which means that you can use those videos as a means to convince your next client or your next your next employment company that you are good in training. Why? Because you have a video on YouTube that shows that you've done trainings before. And these are the things that also build your presence out there. And these are very important part of how people grow in the profession. not just about taking courses, but also doing some other things like teaching people, learning from others, and having a kind of platform where we discuss like this. So I'll be expecting every one of us to take this platform seriously. It is for everyone. It's not just for Kodar. It's not just for Waliu. It's not just for Hakim. It's not just for Shinemi or Kafo. It is for every single person. It's not just for Abanom. It's for every single person. And we hope that we'll be seeing every one of us coming on board to say that they want to train, they want to deliver a particular topic, and the platform will always be available. Thank you once again, everyone. I'm really amazed with our presence today. We had close to 90 persons on board, which is a very great one. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for always being there. We have seen so many of us consistently. We've been here together to build this platform, and we hope that we'll continue to grow amazingly. And on this note, we are going to draw the curtain. And as usual, we want you to unmute, and okay, let me unmute all. We want us to unmute and appreciate our powerful speaker for today's presentation. We want every one of us to unmute. Let me see, let me check. I think I did the setting. Sorry, please. Okay. All right, we can show the gratitude by using the emojis. Thank you. We can use the emojis. Thank you. Okay, now everybody can unmute. Please, you cannot unmute now and appreciate our speaker.
Okay, thank you, our speaker. God bless you.
Thank you, our speaker.
Thank you, Mr. John.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. God bless you.
I appreciate you.
So let's see us again.
All right.
Let's do this again. Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Mr. Marcos. Thank you, Mr.
Well done.
Bakari.
Thank
Thank you,
you
Mr.
very much.
Mudi. Thank you, Al-Amin, Mr. Adewoye, Mr.
Thank you,
Mr.
my
John.
lecturer.
Thank
My
you,
name is
Mr.
Stanley.
Engineer. He don't get it over.
Thank you, Mr. Wali.
Mr.
Thank you very much,
Idowu,
Mr. Wali.
our guy Idowu, thank you for coming around. Engineer Sylvester, thank you. Mr. Uduak, everyone, thank you so much. I can't keep
Thank
Mr.
you,
Fatih
Mr. John.
Mohammed.
Thank you, Koda.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Take Mudele.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mudele. Thank you, my leader. We see you exceptionally. We appreciate your presence. Thank you for making it to this enlightenment series. And we are going to count from 10 as usual to 1.
Thank you.
And let's ensure that next 2 weeks we are having another wonderful enlightenment series 90. I wish we can get to 100 this year, but we are going to 90 in the second week or first week of October. So we are counting from 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bye-bye.